It's Friday, May 30th. I'm Jacob Szymanski with co-host Grant Hardy. You're listening to AMI Today. Grant, it's taken a while before we really started to feel the effects of Trump's tariffs. But the most noticeable thing for me so far really hurts. It hurts so bad. Coffee is so freaking expensive. I don't know if you've seen this, but the 900-gram bag of dark roast Molina brand coffee that I would get cost $24 this time last year. I checked this morning and it's now at $30. That's a 30% increase, which you'll notice is more than the tariff rate that we're getting. A 30% increase in 1 year. What is going on? Like, this physically hurts to think about. Now I'm buying the cheapest whole bean coffee they have, which is a Compliments brand. That's the home brand of Loblaws. It's $15 for the same amount, which is like suspiciously cheap. It also tastes just as bad as you would expect. So, struggle times.
Coffee is so expensive, but it actually really goes back to the importance, I think, of budgeting and keeping a history. I'm seriously impressed with you that you remember the price of your coffee last year, because for me, stuff just kind of creeps up and I don't even notice. It would be as easy peasy to keep all receipts digitally now so we could go back and look at them. I just never do it. So, Jacob, congratulations on your financial savviness, even though these tariffs are hurting all of us.
I can't say I'm being particularly savvy because I bought that Compliments coffee for $15. It was terrible. And then I just went back and bit the bullet and paid $30 for a bag of the good stuff. So not exactly the best. But what is the best is AMI audiobook review, which is coming up in the second half of the show. It's coming up in about 30 minutes. But first, let's get to today's AMI Audio Digest. You might have heard that a federal court struck down all of Trump's Liberation Day tariffs and had them paused again a few days later. So basically, they put a pause on the pause. So if you're confused how this all works, you're not alone. But one of the articles from this morning's edition of the Washington Post helped clear things up a little bit for me. Mike Ross is the host of the Washington Post on AMI Audio. He's connecting from Ajax, Ontario. Mike, what you made clear when you read this article earlier this morning is that this court battle will be very consequential.
Yeah, it'll be very consequential and very interesting to watch because of Donald Trump's past relationships, and especially in this term, less so in his first term, but certainly more in this term, with the courts, with judges in particular, and his very clear and obvious disdain for judges and those who rule against him. Any judge who rules on the legality of anything impacting a Donald Trump decision or law or executive order is not only viewed as disloyal and in a contrary position to the government and to Donald Trump, but it is declared as such. I mean, from Trump on his social media accounts to the White House press secretary, putting it out there, and all of his surrogates out on the media tours doing the same thing. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes, because based on the analysis of this opinion piece, the legality of Trump's tariffs, basically removing the power of the purse or the power of Congress as being the only body that is supposed to be setting tariffs, and taking it into the executive branch, is going to be struck down time and time again moving forward until it gets to the Supreme Court, where it will be very interesting. And this is something we talked about briefly yesterday. Trump is the guy who appointed a lot of the conservative judges on this court to give it its conservative advantage. So it'll be interesting to see if they sort of kowtow to Trump, or if they find themselves, against Trump's actions, and thus they're, in the crosshairs of his loyalty canon.
Yeah, one interesting, that's absolutely true. And one other interesting point that has been made, I believe, in this article as well, is the fact that this is going to be quite a bit more consequential than just not just, but, throwing a couple extra people on planes and saying, oops, we didn't see the court decision, whatever it is. In this case, we're talking about vast tariffs that in theory there would be no way to collect if the courts struck this down. Like, this is going to be much more difficult, I think, for the administration to just ignore,
Well, especially if you're in the process right now of collecting those tariffs, and then they're deemed to have been illegal. So, it's kind of like,
Right.
okay, I paid my cable bill last month, but now wait a minute, I actually overpaid that cable bill. I need some of that money back. How's that going to be handled? And that countries that have paid too much to the United States are not just going to sit back and take it. And I'm not sure how the finances work with something like that. If you overpay a bill, then you get a credit towards the next month. Are these countries going to be willing to take a credit on their tariff bills here, or could it be more serious than that? And yes, because the court orders that Trump has dismissed or disregarded with regards to some of the migrants that he's sent to third-party countries really don't involve anyone fighting back except that individual person. So yeah, it is more consequential when suddenly you're going up against major nations from across the world versus that one individual
Yeah.
who, let's face it, when you go up against a big system, it's much easier for the big system to quash you than it would be quashing a major nation across the pond.
And that's a much better way of putting it than what I did. More consequential, I suppose, from the perspective of the Trump administration, who might find it harder.
Oh, for sure.
Of course, it's
for sure. I mean, Donald Trump is looking, as I mentioned yesterday on another topic. Donald Trump is always looking to push the envelope. Donald Trump is always looking to see how far he can get away with things, and he is the king of telling people that this has never happened, or this action that I've taken, it's never been done in the history of this country, or this is the biggest amount of money in the history of this country. He loves the extremes. And if something has never been done, he wants to be the guy who does it, whether it's good or bad, right? It kind of goes with Donald Trump, the con man / Donald Trump, the carnival barker, that there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? It doesn't matter that it's negative. His name's out there, people are talking about him, and he's having an impact. If at some point later down the road he has to reverse course, he'll find a way to blame someone or find a reason other than himself, because this is how he was trained, right? He was brought up along through the world of business and legalities by Ray Cohn, who was a personal advisor, who was an advisor to his father, who always said that the number one rule he taught Donald Trump was never apologize and never admit wrongdoing. And guess what? He's lived by that his entire life. He will never admit that he was wrong. He will never say that what he did was illegal, and he will never tell you that a policy of his has failed. He will find some kind of way to contort the truth and turn it around into either blaming you for it or finding another reason why things didn't really work out or why things get shut down on him, in this case, by judges, right? Disloyal judges, activist judges, scumbags, like all the language and all the terms that he uses for his political opponents or for judges who rule against him. But it's all about never admitting wrongdoing and never, ever apologizing.
To recap one of the main points of this article, it's that it's going to be really difficult for Trump to disregard a court ruling when it has to do with tariffs, because like you laid out, Mike, it would be like collecting on something that would be illegal. And then how do you like redistribute that money if it was taken illegally? Not exactly the best PR. And I don't think all PR is good PR in this case when it involves literally stealing from companies and people. Mike, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
That was Mike Ross. He's the host of The Washington Post on AMI Audio. That show is at 11 a.m. Eastern and repeats every 6 hours on AMI Audio. Mike was joining us from Ajax, Ontario.
I appreciate you guys clarifying my point there. More difficult to ignore. It was a better word than more consequential. Something that could be consequential is our AMI research panel. If you head to ami.ca/panel, you can join up. You can help us shape everything we do at the company, including media and production and accessibility, and even get compensated for those long form studies. ami.ca/panel is the place to be, and we'd love to hear from you.
You know what else is hard to ignore? Double Tap. That surely makes noise. Shaun Preece is a host on Double Tap. That's AMI's very popular accessible tech show. He's connecting from Manchester, UK. And Shaun, us people in the blind community love Apple and our iPhones, which is why I was surprised to hear you wanted to talk about this little thing called Android. What even is that? What is
Wow, I'm so glad you said that and not me. Wow. That's Jacob. All feedback to Jacob. Yes. Look, yes, there's no denying that both Stephen and I, we love the iPhone. That's sort of what we started on. And we love it. But even now we're saying, the Android is looking tempting, especially with the AI and the lack of progress with Apple Intelligence. Lots of people are looking towards Android now. And it is, thanks to the accessibility suite on there, the accessibility is as fine as it is on the iPhone. And I wanted to talk about it today because Talkback 16 is being rolled out as we speak. Some of you may already have it, and it has some pretty interesting features. And the two stand out for me are we're sort of relying on AI as everything is, but Gemini image description. So for whatever image or even button, whatever element is on your smartphone, if it's graphical, you can now go to Talkback settings and have Gemini describe it to you. Now that was there before, which is very nice, but the updates here are that now you can ask follow-up questions. So before you would just say, "Yep, this is a button with a play symbol on it." Fine, but now you can ask follow-up questions. So for those photos or those images featured images in articles, you can ask follow-up questions. Tell me more about this. What's this person wearing? Which is always good. But more than that, you can also now have Gemini describe not only the image that you've got your screen reader focused on, but also the entire screen. So it takes a screenshot and you can say, okay, describe the layout of this app and things like that. So it can help. I really like that. I think this is very handy. It's very Be My Eyesy, but it's baked into Talkback 16. It's very nice.
That's going to be a tough one, I think, for Apple's accessibility team to ignore. Like, that's going to be something blind people are really going to flock to.
No, you're absolutely right. Using Gemini as your voice assistant on Android, I've been testing it out. It is very nice. And when you go back to Siri, it's like, oh, okay, this needs work. So
how is it better than Siri?
Oh, just the Siri gets so many things wrong. Now, we've got to say every time we're talking about AI, it does get things wrong, right? But just that way you can fall over your words, as we all do when we're asking questions. You can fall over a sentence, you can restart a sentence, you can cough, you can whatever, and it still gets the context. That's the beauty of talking to AI, is that you don't have to pick your words carefully. You don't have to, think about what you're going to say. It's just like having a conversation. And Siri is not great at that. It just isn't. How many times I've said, call so-and-so, one of my contacts, and it does a Google search or whatever. It's not great. And when you use something like Gemini on an Android device, it just really highlights that.
It's conversational, right? And that's the next step for AI.
It is.
I mean, it's already getting there. If you do the ChatGPT voice feature, like, it is surprisingly conversational. But
it's fantastic.
Now implement that into an AI that can actually interact with the features of your phone, like doing Google searches and making calls and stuff. That's the next step. How cool is that going to be? And when that happens, it's like, will we interact with our phones any other way?
Yeah, that's going to be
very true.
That's going to be the really exciting thing, is when we can not just have inaccessible apps described, but we can actually tell it what to click on. That, I think, that is what I'm really excited about.
That's going to happen. It's going to happen. In the recent Google I/O, they did unveil that Gemini AI has these MCPs, as they're called, and it's Model Controller Protocol or something like that, Context Protocol, and it means basically that agents can do exactly that. Programs can open up themselves to AI, so it can do that sort of
That's
thing.
really cool. No way.
It's
So you
going to be
can
very
make it do
nice.
chains of actions. That's genius. I'm so
Yeah,
excited for
absolutely.
that. And
Yep.
Gonna be
Sean,
So
great.
I
check
know
out.
that you guys,
Sorry, I should
I,
just say, check out Talkback 16. It will be rolling out. So if you haven't got it now, you should have over the next few weeks.
yep,
Awesome.
for all you people who actually have Android. Sean, thank you so
Oh,
much for your time. We'll talk again after the weekend.
thanks so much. Take care, you too. Wow, I'm out of here.
You couldn't be out of here faster. That was Shaun Preece. He's a host on Double Tap. That's AMI's very popular accessible tech show. It is at noon Eastern and repeats every 6 hours on AMI Audio. He was joining us from Manchester, UK.
The Globe and Mail, Jacob, airs at 10 a.m. Eastern on AMI Audio and is hosted by Corinne Van Dusen and Matt Spears. I've got a couple articles. One of them is called A Very Different Kind of Urban Leash-Free Zone. I believe this is from their editorial board, and they talk about your bladder leash. So they say basically everybody roaming around a city is on a leash, which is how far are you from the nearest toilet? And everyone's leash is a little bit longer. Like children and people with intestinal problems have a short leash, seniors as well, but we all have one. And in emergencies, people might have to cut the kids' playtime short if there's no washroom on the playground, maybe even use an alleyway or something like that. Cities need to remove the worry, they say, that is represented by that leash by adding more public toilets, and not just toilets, but good toilets, keeping them in good condition. They say that cities are moving kind of in the right direction, Canadian cities, although it's not exactly good news because we're starting from a very, very low bar. But they do point out that for example, in Toronto, an advocacy group is running a public toilet sort of design contest. In Vancouver, we're seeing city councilors understanding the importance of public toilets as well. They highlight that it's really an invisible issue, and we don't really talk about it until you need to go find a toilet. But they say the point of cities is to bring people together. Density allows municipal governments to provide services cheaply, and that opens up spending for other improvements to urban life. But in exchange for that, if you want to have a functioning city, you have to have basic public spaces, somewhere to drink water, somewhere to sit, and somewhere to relieve yourself. So they are really highlighting the importance of public toilets. I'm curious about your thoughts. One thing I just wanted to add, though, is this is a particularly important issue, I think, for people with disabilities in multiple ways, possibly for having a smaller bladder leash, quote unquote, than others, depending on your disability. Partially the issue of accessible washrooms. Not only do you need a toilet, you need one that you can actually use if you're a wheelchair user, etc. And also finding toilets. I believe that life can sometimes be structured, even what you eat and drink, and taking longer if you're using transit, etc. But like, where am I going to find a toilet? Jacob?
Man, I've been in a lot of restaurants where if you ask for where the toilet is, they're like, "Oh, it's down the stairs, down this huge hallway, turn to the left, then the right, go back up the stairs, then it's right there." Like just some ridiculous path to get to a toilet. And especially downtown in older cities, some of these bathrooms are completely hidden. And right now, there are bathrooms in restaurants and museums and malls and stores, places like that, but the expectation is that you need to be a patron to use those bathrooms, and
Yeah.
that's generally respected. In this article, it's the editorial board that wrote this article, by the way, the Globe and Mail editorial board, and they're talking about truly public bathrooms just available to anyone at any time, and they mean like purpose built facilities that are just for anyone to use at any time. Designing these public toilets is an astronomical design challenge because they're both very necessary, but also the perfect place for people who are living on the streets to go and do what I'll call less than wholesome things. If you don't have public bathrooms, people are just going to do their business in alleyways, and that's disgusting. And that's not like a shot at anyone who does that. If you've got nowhere else to go, like you have to go somewhere.
Do what you
You
gotta
need
do.
public bathrooms. It's not an option, right? There was and it's even in the bathrooms of like private businesses uh that are in areas that are like not great areas of town. They'll see a lot of
Mhm.
foot traffic of just people who just want to use the bathroom, and God, those places are just full of depravity. So, like, good luck for the people challenging these bathrooms. I hope you can come up with a good design.
Yeah, safety, accessibility, and keeping them clean too. Yeah, it's a
Lots
tough.
to consider.
There's a lot to consider. A lot to consider that is not really addressed in this article, as you said. Um, Lots of interesting content on the Globe and Mail today. Another article that is super interesting that we're not going to have time to get to, but would encourage you to check that out. 10 a.m. Eastern is when it first airs, and it repeats every 6 hours on AMI Audio. Our talk show Kelly and Company airs at 2 p.m. Eastern on AMI Audio, and we've got Nisreen Abdel-Majid on the show right now. Nisreen, I know you were on the show here listening to our conversation there, hopefully regarding accessible public toilets. Anything you would like to add in terms of just, I guess, your thoughts or experiences regarding accessibility?
I think the biggest challenge when I think of public bathrooms is park bathrooms. And yeah, accessibility is a factor. A lot of people have problems with accessible bathrooms in public restrooms. It's unfortunate. It'll be a very tight space. And I've been to so many parks, and my family, we're really into going to picnics and stuff. And we always pick a spot next to the bathroom. And we are very, very challenged. There's people in my family who have disabilities and require a bigger restroom. And I think that's a challenging part to find the wheelchair, the accessible stalls that we need. And they're usually very tight just to get into the restroom, not even into the stall, the restroom itself. It's very busy and it's so dirty. So
Yes.
it's really unfortunate and I hate it. I really hate it. Like I really try to avoid going to public bathrooms because of that, because of those two challenges that we face.
Yeah, I've certainly been inside quite a lot of sketchy public bathrooms, and inaccessible in a different way, which is they're very difficult spaces to navigate, especially when you have to be very cautious navigating
Yeah.
around individuals who might be doing different things. Plus, you've got urinals, you've got all sorts of things to navigate around. So,
Or you find like the restrooms that were built like 30 years ago, like over 30 years ago. Like the sinks are so tiny, so old. Everything you see is just it's not as accessible. It is really not accessible at all. You can tell that it was built a very long time ago, and how is it not being renovated? And
You
these
know,
parks are big. It's not even like small parks.
one of the challenges you guys have already brought up, and that's like keeping these bathrooms clean, public bathrooms clean, because you're attracting all sorts of people to go to these bathrooms, and not everybody is respectful and mindful that someone needs to clean that up. I think part of the solution, and it's kind of a half solution, is just to understand that the part of it is on us to keep these things clean and not
Hmm.
to act like an animal when you go in there. Right? Like
oh,
it's a
Oh my
public
100%.
God,
bathroom. We
yeah.
all share these spaces, and it's like a social attitude. It's like you don't litter, you don't just throw your Tim Hortons coffee cup after you're done with it, just like on the street or something like that. Like
Yes.
we share public places, we keep them clean. It's this attitude that it's somebody's job to clean it up that makes these
Mhm.
public bathrooms so disgusting.
Yeah, and
They're
you see it
actually
firsthand from people around, like in parks where they leave all their trash on the picnic benches and
So
stuff like that. I find it so disgusting, so disrespectful. Like, clean up after yourself. If you clean up after yourself at home, why aren't you doing the same in public spaces?
Yeah,
It's not fair.
exactly. There's some in high schools in Japan, they do have janitors, but a big part of what's expected of the students is that they clean the school. Like they pass mops
Good.
and pick up trash constantly, and it instills this social duty to maintain public spaces. I think that's something that we should really bring to North America. But
Yeah.
Niz, before we let you go, what do you have coming up on Kelly and Company
Yes.
at 2 p.m. Eastern?
On today's show, we're getting the top tech headlines explained and dissected by host of Double Tap on AMI Audio, Stephen Scott. And we ask ourselves, what brand new series are still to come on AMI TV and AMI Plus, and what projects have been greenlit for development? Well, to answer that, Greg David joins us, communication specialist at AMI. He spills the tea on top secret information that not even the media knows about yet. So we're
Ooh.
really excited.
Greg David spills a lot of tea. Niz,
He
thank you so
does.
much for your time. We'll talk again after the weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Of course. That was Nisreen Abdel-Majid. She's a co-host on Kelly and Company. That show airs at 2 p.m. Eastern and repeats every 6 hours on AMI Audio. It's also available as a podcast, and that includes YouTube. Grant, that's it for our AMI Audio Digest for the week. We'll see you after the weekend. Have a good one, eh?
Have a fantastic weekend, folks.
Of course. That was co-host Grant Hardy. That's all the time we have for today's AMI Audio Digest. If you're listening on AMI Audio, audiobook review is coming up in just a second. Remember, you can find AMI Audiobook Review wherever you listen to podcasts, and that includes YouTube. I'm Jacob Szymanski. Let's talk audiobooks.